What you wanna know?
What's going on, people? Myke ctown here. Welcome to episode of What Do You Want to Know? You ask your questions. If I like your questions, I answer your questions on camera. Yeah, let's jump right into this. Today's question comes from Billy, and he says, I am a semi-awkward kind of guy, which makes it a bit hard to get dates. I'm a nice person, but I've been told that my awkwardness comes off as standoffish. I'm not a big fan of approaching girls at bars, so I figured trying out online dating might be a good idea. I've signed up for OkCupid and Tinder, thinking about Match.com, but I wanted to see what you thought of online dating. Have you tried it? Hey, Billy. So yeah, I've tried online dating as well, mainly because I'm not a big fan of trying to find girls at bars either. So it's easier to filter through the people that I might actually go on a date with prior to actually going on a date with them. But I've had a couple of good situations with online dating, a few long-term relationships that went well, but then there were some absolutely terrible situations, and I'm sure you guys would much rather hear about those than the success stories. So here we go. The first one, this was my very first online date. It was a super cute girl from OkCupid. This was probably 10 years ago. I didn't know what to expect, but me and the girl had talked a little bit. She was a big fan of David Lynch. She was into art. She seemed to have good fashion sense. So the date was her coming to my place and watching Mulholland Drive. She shows up and was even better looking in person than she was in the pictures, which doesn't fucking happen. But she looked kind of like Lark Voorhees before she dipped her face in that Joker acid. But the girl was wearing a tank top, a short jean skirt, cowboy boots. She looked top notch. So we have a bit of conversation. Then we start watching the movie, and a few minutes into the movie, she puts her feet up on my coffee table, and I nicely said, hey, can you take your feet off my coffee table? If she wasn't wearing cowboy boots and was just wearing like socks or something, I wouldn't have cared. So, she says, oh, I'm sorry, and takes them down. And after about 10 minutes maybe goes by, she puts them on my coffee table again. And I looked over and I was like, hi, can you take your feet off my coffee table? I kind of laughed about it so as to not create any kind of friction there, and she kind of attitudey, like huffed, like, ugh, and took them off again, and I was like, alright, whatever. So here's the kicker. About 15 minutes later, she puts her fucking cowboy boot feet on my coffee table again, and at that point, I was like, is she fucking kidding? Like, I looked over and I was like, yo, are you serious? And she's like, what? And I'm like, your fucking feet, like, this is the third time, like, can you take your feet off my shit? She gets all pissy. Your shit ain't that nice anyway. Why are you tripping, acting like a little baby over this? My shoes are clean. Like, what's the fucking problem? And I was just like, okay, I just met you and I'm not about to deal with this with a person that I have absolutely no investment in. So I didn't say a word. I just got up and I walked over to the door and I opened it and I looked at her. And she's like, are you fucking kidding me? Nigga, you're kicking me out? And I didn't say a word. I just stood there with the door open, still just staring at her. So she's sitting there ranting and raving and hollering about how I'm kicking her out, still not getting up. So I walked over to her. I picked her purse up off of the floor next to the couch. I put it in her lap, and I walked right back over to the door and just stared at her once again. So she finally gets up and starts walking out the door, still hollering about how I'm a bitch nigga and all this other shit. And she gets over the threshold and then she looks back at me and prepares to say something else right as, boom, I closed the door in her face. Because I didn't want to hear it. So I walked over to the couch, sat back down, grabbed my beer, finished watching Mulholland Drive. So the next girl, we met on Tinder. She seemed cool. We didn't have a lot in common at all, but I dated a lot of weird artsy types. So I was trying to see what it was like to hang out with someone who appeared to be a bit more average. So I met up with her at a bar, and within a few minutes, I knew that this was not the person for me. She was some kind of executive at an office or something, and she was telling me about how she was having these issues with some of her employees, and I was a manager at the time, so I could relate, but she starts telling me about how she wants to fire the entire department and hire all new people. And I don't care, I'll fire all of them. And I found that to be a really disgusting statement. I asked her, what about the other people that weren't doing a bad job? And she said something along the lines of, well, they should influence their teammates to do a better job. So the way I see it, they're all at fault. So I knew then that I was pretty much done with this date, but I didn't really know a nice way to end it. Then the universe tossed me a solid, man. She had ordered this high gravity beer, which you would think would come in a standard pint glass, but instead it came in this huge glass that looked like it would be something made for a 40. And she starts drinking a good bit of it while we're talking, and all of a sudden she gets this random case of the hiccups. And I don't mean like regular, hiccups. I'm talking like the kind of hiccups that sound like they're painful. Like, like, it was nuts, dude. And they sounded like the kind of hiccups that, like, cartoon people get when they get drunk. Do you know what I'm talking about? And she kept doing it, and it was so loud that people were looking at us. Like, the table behind her was, like, looking back like we were just fucking up their entire evening. So it was getting to the point where it was almost embarrassing. So I was like, yo, are you okay? And she's like, I'm like, do you want to leave? So we get the check, I pay, we leave, I walk her to her car, she's, I'm so sorry about this, this is so embarrassing. Now I'm like, no, it's fine, don't worry about it, we're good. She texted me after that saying something like, I'm sorry about the whole thing, and I'm just like, dude, don't worry about it, it's totally cool, but I sure as shit wasn't about to ask her out again, so it really didn't fucking matter. Alright, the last story I'll tell is a doozy. So, this is another girl that I met off Tinder. The relationship started off pretty good. She was a nice girl. We got along great. We're both into music, both into art. She actually put me on to some musical artists that I wasn't aware of, and she knew about all these obscure visual artists that most girls that I talked to didn't know anything about. Shit, most people in general don't know what I'm talking about when I mention these people. So, and she was also starting to go vegan, so everything was great with her. The problem arose after we'd been dating for a couple of months, and she decided to tell me how she'd been going through my Instagram and my Facebook and my Twitter. She'd been looking at who I was talking to, who my new followers were, how many of them were girls, where these girls lived, etc. And I was actually blown away by this. I was really irritated. Like, I'm a pretty trustworthy guy. I've never cheated on a girl ever in my life. So call it rash, but I broke it off with her. I figured if she was doing something like this early on in the relationship, then it was an indication of future behavior. And there's been many times that I've seen bad behavior in the beginning of a relationship, but I still stuck it out because I figured she'd change, or that maybe I was just overreacting. So these days when I see something bad in the beginning, I'm out like a bad light bulb. The breaking off didn't go so well. She thought I was being an asshole and never really understood the issue of what she'd done, and she never actually apologized for it. And maybe we could have worked it out, or at least stayed friends, which I proposed, but her attitude was just nasty, and she started attacking me, calling me a baby, just saying a bunch of stupid shit to me. So I just stopped talking to her altogether, deleted her from Facebook, which I don't normally delete anybody. But I just didn't even want to deal with her or her weird stalker behavior or her shitty attitude. Here's where things get fucking weird. So a few days later, I'm leaving my house for work, and there's this disgusting smell under my carport. And I lived close to some woods, so I figured maybe it was a dead animal and the smell was just seeping over from the woods. So I just got in my car and I went on to work. Now, it was like August, so it was pretty hot. So whatever it was baking in the hot Georgia sun all day long. So when I got home, my entire yard smelled like shit. And here's why. I traced the smell to an area that was right by my trash can under my carport, which had a literal pile of human shit next to it. So I'm running around like trying to think like, what the fuck do I do with this? I didn't have a shovel or anything. So the only thing I could think to do was go inside, and I wrapped my hand in paper towels, and I went and I fucking picked it up and put it in a grocery bag, put it in my trunk, and drove it down the street. I think I drove it to like the church dumpster and threw it in there. I didn't know what else to do, guys. I was in fucking panic mode. Now, I'm sure you have two questions, okay? The first one is, how do you know it was human shit? Which is a stupid fucking question, man. If you can't tell the difference between human shit and any kind of animal shit, then something is fucking wrong with you. It definitely doesn't look the same, and they definitely don't smell the same. I clearly can't show you the smell, but I can show you a picture that I sent to my buddy Kevin, since he didn't believe me at first. So if you have a queasy stomach, go ahead and turn away, but for the rest of you guys, here you go. Yeah, that's a solid human duke. People turd, caca, dookie, Yes, human shit. The second question I'm sure you have is, how does this relate to the girl? Well, I can't say for certain that she did it, and I'd like to think that she didn't, but when I told a friend of mine, the first thing she said is, it was probably that girl you were dating. And I had never even thought about it. Like, the girl was highly pissed off about the way in which I broke things off, and it was highly coincidental that it was like 2 days later and a pile of human poop shows up in my yard. I mean, what do you guys think? Like, do people randomly shit in other people's carports on a regular basis? Like, or if so, tell me and I'll stop subconsciously blaming old girl for doing this. But if you have no other logical scenario, then yes, that's some fucked up shit that I broke up with this girl and she took a shit in my yard, man. So yeah, Billy, try online dating all you want, man, but be careful, man. You could end up like me, cleaning up another human being's shit. A human that's not your baby, your sick wife, or your decrepit mother. Like, another human being's turd, man. Protect your neck, Billy. Be careful out here in these streets, man. It's real, bro. It's real. Alright, so that's it for this edition of What Do You Want to Know? Yeah, if you have any questions that you want me to answer, make sure you email them to ctownwdywk@gmail.com. And as usual, thank you for living, thank you for loving, thank you for being you. Please don't die, and I'll see you guys next time. Alright? Peace, bitches!